Welcome to this webinar, which is creative problem solving and innovation in marketing. I think for a lot of people, this is kind of almost how they see marketing, is that it's super creative, it kind of pushes the boundaries, there's innovation throughout it. But I think for lots of us in marketing, we understand that it's a lot more about process management, process mapping, systems, project management, etc. But we mustn't lose sight of the fact that creativity and innovation is certainly something that enables us to push the boundaries of our work on a day-to-day basis. So in this particular session, we're going to look at how to unlock creative potential and develop innovative solutions by following, I guess you could call it best practice, but certainly a number of tools and techniques and ways of becoming a little bit more creative or opening opportunities that might otherwise go missed. So creativity, if we want to define it in marketing, refers to the use of novel ideas and approaches and potentially good solutions to develop strategies and tactics that will stand out, and especially in competitive markets. If you're in a commoditized or very vanilla flavored marketplace, just by the fact it's either very well established or the fact that there's very little differentiation between organizations or businesses, then certainly being creative is a way to begin to add some competitive advantage. So we'll see that play out in this talk. It will also drive creativity, that is, drive engagement and potentially build much stronger emotional connections with customers. And this will, of course, be at the same time fostering brand differentiation. So by being creative, you can just almost move away from the crowd. You can stand out. You can be identified for something. And we do see this, being more than just, a nice to have, but essential for success in very busy marketplaces. And this is why, from my perspective, we're seeing things like thought leadership in really creative ways coming to the fore in marketing and communications. So it's a very practical kind of approach, but it's also very commercially relevant if you're in a very crowded sector. So in modern marketing, why is innovation so crucial? Well, it enables us to adapt to change. We know, and let's face it, certainly this side of the pandemic years, if we could call them those, we know that the speed of change, the needing to be adaptable, the fact that there is no normal has become part and parcel of everyday life in business. So market dynamics are constantly changing. Our customers, their behaviors, their needs, their aspirations are constantly changing. And as we know, and certainly as we've seen over the last 12 months or so, technology is evolving at a more rapid pace than ever. I mean, it really is. With the evolution of AI, we're seeing, change literally by the day, if not by the hour. So innovative marketers are the ones who will stay ahead, or at least at the cusp of these trends. And they will certainly move ahead of competitors by just being really actively engaged and curious and involved in these changes, and almost seeing these things, as I like to call it, as a little bit of a social experiment, or the psychology behind things and why they happen. So innovation is really crucial in that sense. It also enables us to drive growth, not be subservient to growth or subservient to any trends, but actually being part of the drive forward and how these trends manifest. So it helps a brand, or it helps a marketer, to explore new business models, reach new audiences, and then ultimately, because you are more proactive, because you're at the forefront of the developments in your sector, to optimize your ROI. The return on investment of the innovation, or the investment in the attention that you give to these changes. A really good example here is maybe Nike's personalized AI-driven marketing approach. I mean, their app that they currently have, which uses predictive analytics for tailored product recommendations, is just a really great way to be able to expand the marketplace out as far as they're concerned. And a lot of other organizations are doing similar things, blending technology with what is in the customer's hands, with these new approaches to market. So just kind of, rocking the boat, as it were, from what has gone before. So innovation is truly crucial in the modern marketing arena. Now, a lot of the time when we think about innovation or creativity, it begins really from the whole idea of problem solving. Now, often the problem can come in as much as we're identifying a customer's challenge or issue that we want to help them to solve. So we're solving a need or a want or a desire in our customers' minds. But it can also come from problem solving processes or systems or engagement where we as an organization see that we could be doing it better. So we see there's a problem or we're not just leveraging what we could do well enough. So we create a problem solving process that enables us to be creative in quite a systematic way. And what we're going to see as we go through this talk is that, certainly creativity and sort of moving the game forward in terms of becoming more innovative isn't so much about the creative ideas, but more about the processes that we use to come up with those ideas. So a simple creative problem-solving process would have potentially 4 steps: problem identification, idea generation, solution evaluation, and then implementation or rollout. So at step 1, the problem identification, clearly defining the problem or the issue or the challenge that we're trying to solve. Now, of course, without understanding that in depth, we're kind of, maybe flitting around the actual issue, and maybe we don't get sort of deep enough into it to be able to actually come up with solutions. So we need to be very clear about the problem that we are looking to work with. Step 2 then is idea generation using brain dumping, lateral thinking, free association, and a whole host of other tools, which we'll talk about in a minute, to generate a diverse range of solutions. Now, the more the better, really, when it comes up with being creative, not restraining yourself to what has gone before, or that putting boundaries around something just because, well, this is the way we've always done it, but being really open and creative with the possibilities. I mean, asking the question, what if? What if budget was no option or no limiter? What if we had unlimited time? Those kinds of things open up the boundaries to possibility. So really exciting idea generation, step 2. Step 3 then is to evaluate each of those potential solutions that you've come up with for feasibility, for impact, and for alignment with your brand's goals or objectives. So that's when you bring all of these ideas generated down to some kind of reality. So there's a reality check and a prioritization that goes on there at step 3. And then step 4 is putting the best solution into practice. That's your implementation stage. And you obviously at the same time have to monitor and iterate or reiterate as necessary. Because often when you are being creative and coming up with something new or innovative and then taking it to market, or maybe running a pilot study, you won't get it right first time because it is something by definition that's very new. So therefore, what you're doing is you're constantly revisiting it, you're monitoring it, you're evaluating it, and then going through this process of continuous improvement, which again is really, really important as you go through this journey. So let's see how we can kind of think a little bit more deeply about innovation, say within a marketing strategy. Now, typically what we'd be looking for here is to break through, as I'm talking about these boundaries. So breaking through traditional boundaries is a great way to become more innovative. So challenging industry norms is something that you can often do as a starting point. Innovation often stems from questioning what we would call the status quo. So, the normal or the way that we do things. If you start to ask the why question, why do we do things like that? Why do we do things at that point? Why do we limit ourselves by this? Or why is it always that we get that kind of an outcome? Thinking beyond typical marketing channels and tactics as well, because what works for competitors or industry leaders may not be the only solution. Innovation comes from being different. It comes from challenging. It comes from the new. An example is Burger King's Whopper Detour campaign, which used geofencing technology to direct customers away from McDonald's locations by offering them a 1 cent Whopper if they ordered through the app near a competitor's location. I mean, talk about groundbreaking, talk about challenging, talk about unsettling within a very well established marketplace. This campaign broke traditional fast food marketing norms by being pretty clever, leveraging a clever digital first approach and a highly competitive, very combative, actually, sort of, real combat strategy. So, an actionable tip that we might take away from something like this is to identify maybe in your market an entrenched norm and then maybe brainstorm ways to challenge it. How can you use data or technology, for example, to flip the script? How can you actually change things up by not being limited by the norm that is entrenched? So maybe think about something that you see, all of your competitors and your own organization doing and think, what if about that particular challenge? That can then start the conversation going. And we'll talk about how you work together as a team and start to come together to kind of do this accurately and actively in just a moment. But identifying an entrenched norm is a great way of starting. Start with something familiar and then start to really go at it and really challenge as to, well, why, how, when, what, and start to really kind of go deeply into it. You can also, to innovate in marketing strategy, you can collaborate with unlikely partners. Now, this is an interesting one because, within all of our industries, we do have strategic and tactical partnerships. We have supplier relationships, we have resellers. But cross-industry partnerships can be interesting. So collaborating with partners outside of your usual domain can often lead to very unexpected synergies and innovation in campaigns, in a fresh new perspective, and potentially even access to new audiences. Nike's collaboration with Apple, which resulted in the Nike Plus technology, merging fashion, fitness, and technology to create a new product and marketing ecosystem that reached and blended both fitness enthusiasts and tech-savvy customers, was a game changer in this cross-industry partnership. So you need to be looking really, if you're going to take this into play, you need to be thinking of industries that aren't directly related to yours, but could you collaborate with a brand that maybe shares similar values or maybe target audiences that have a similarity, or at least maybe the customer persona can be seen to be aligned? That could be super interesting. So again, it's beginning the creative thought process. You don't have to go deep. You don't have to even at the start contact them, but just exploring the opportunity of maybe collaboratively looking at the way that you kind of forge both relationships there, but also these new opportunities. That in itself could become really, really interesting. Innovation in marketing strategy can also be formed around embracing disruption. Now, I love this word disruption. It's kind of, I guess, a little bit of the maverick spirit in me. And I'm sure as a marketer, you probably sort of feel the same from time to time. It's like, well, why can't we just do something different? Why can't we explore? Why can't we be curious? I mean, it is a great trait of a marketer is to have that kind of innate curiosity and challenge the norm. So if you were to embrace disruptive marketing, leveraging new technology, for example, staying ahead of the curve by embracing technologies like emerging AI, blockchain, VR, AR in your marketing strategies. I mean, these technologies, as we know, if you even dip your toe in the water of these things, they can create more immersive and interactive experiences. And these things are available today. This is not the future. So what kind of technologies could you look at? I mean, is it metaverse? Is it augmented reality? How could those immersive experiences connect with your audience in a more meaningful way? And of course, if you could innovate there and actually then solve a problem, fulfill a need, maybe it's your need or it's their need as a customer, then maybe then you can actually blend this in. So it becomes an evolution of the customer journey rather than, even though we're talking about the word disruption, an actual revolution. So maybe it's a step-by-step approach. That could be interesting. I mean, for example, this year, luxury brand Gucci have created a virtual gallery in the metaverse to celebrate their 100th anniversary. They're offering in that metaverse space exclusive virtual products, which could be later redeemed for physical goods. So blending, and I call this blended reality, not just virtual reality, blended reality. So maybe disrupting by actually going a few steps further than your competition in these emerging technologies could be an interesting way of exploring that. Customer-driven innovation is the final one that I want to explore with you when it comes to marketing strategy. I mean, a lot of the time we see evidence of co-creating value with customers as being probably one of the most sound ways that you can do things differently. So inviting your customers, for example, into the innovation process can actually open up new ways and new perspectives of actually viewing what you do, or possibilities that you could do things differently. You know, brands that listen to their customers and get the feedback or involve them in product development often develop both deeper loyalty, but innovation in the offers that they then create. Lay's Do Us a Favor flavor campaign led customers submit flavor ideas and effectively turning those customers into marketers. And this in itself was a great example of fostering a sense of community and ownership. You know, the customer actually feels part of the brand. They feel influential. And can you imagine the loyalty that that spurs? I mean, it's really a really interesting way of approaching stuff. So rather than always seeing the customer as the end game in the marketing activity, bring them in upstream. You know, customer-driven innovation. So maybe running a contest or campaign where your customers contribute to ideas for a new product or marketing initiative, and then think about how could we reward them with that? Is just the very fact they are in that part of the relationship building enough? Or it could be you incentivize, or it could be you reward them, because then the products then, or the services then that come out the other end of those conversations, they get first access to. So multiple ways you can play this, but just the idea of bringing customers as well as technology, as well as new thinking into play, are many, many different ways that you can innovate in your marketing strategy. So how do you then kind of unlock this creative potential? I mean, I've given you a few sort of things to kind of think about, and typically these are the ones that are kind of seem to be rising to the surface right now in terms of things that you know, existing brands are innovating with, and so you know, there's some best practice kind of emerging and evolving here. But where do these kinds of organizations who are doing this stuff, where do they begin? Well, one of the tools that you can use, and I've got 3 or 4 here to share with you, to unlock creative potential in your team or your organization, or maybe even just within you. The first one I would say is mind mapping. Now, this is not rocket science. You probably know this technique already, but it's a very visual technique that will help you to brain dump and structure ideas. And importantly, not just to get those ideas out of your mind, but to see the connections between seemingly otherwise unrelated ideas. If you structure these ideas as part of a mind map, starting with your core marketing challenge in the center, and then branching out with related ideas like content, audience segments, channels, for example, and connect them in new ways, this in itself can lead to creative solutions that initially weren't that obvious. So you can have a little play with that. It's really interesting. I mean, an actionable tip would be to use mind mapping as an interactive tool, maybe within your next team meeting, to stimulate some more lateral thinking amongst your colleagues. A good example here might be that a food delivery company could start with increase repeat customers at the center of the mind map as a goal. And the branches then might include things like loyalty programs, gamification, personalizing special offers, and building community building events. So lots of different ways that you can start with a core idea and then start to evolve that idea out from the center. And again, no boundaries, no limitations, no restrictions. And by doing that, you don't have to be restricted by, oh, yes, but that one's a little bit awkward. In mind mapping, as in a lot of these techniques, keep the restrictions out of play, because, of course, we know that comes at step 4 when you want to start to prioritize the ideas you're going to take forward. Another tool you can use is the Scamper Technique. This is substitute, combine, adapt, modify, put to another use, eliminate, and reverse. So a different range of kind of steps, if you like, in the journey of unlocking creative potential. The Scamper Technique, if you take it step by step, can help you as a marketer to look at existing strategies or products and improve or innovate them through a systematic questioning approach. So a nice simple example to bring the Scamper technique to life. So maybe a beverage company could use it. So substitute. So could they substitute ingredients to create a healthier version of their drinks? Could they combine the C in Scamper? Could they combine this product with another to create a third? They could, the A, they could adapt. So can they adapt the packaging for a different audience, like the eco-conscious customer, for example? Or the E in Scamper, could they eliminate? Could they eliminate plastic and go fully biodegradable? By looking at a simple single product or service and then applying the Scamper technique to it, it opens up maybe just one element from a whole host of things that you could do. Maybe the one element that you must do will start to emerge. So the actionable tip will be to use Scamper as a checklist. Substitute, combine, adapt, modify, put to another use, eliminate, or reverse when evaluating a current campaign or a product or service to promote and find new ideas or potential improvements. I have to say, when I'm working with a client, I find the Scamper technique really good as a scene setter to just get those creative juices flowing in maybe a planning meeting. And as we're at this point in the year, a lot of us are looking to plan for next year's activities. So it can be a great way of reviewing your product or service portfolio right now and be looking, using Scamper technique, looking for just maybe a single simple example of something you can do differently next year. So have a little play with that one at your next team meeting. That one can be a really good one too. The third example for unlocking creative potential that I'd like to talk to you about is design thinking. Now, this one's a human-centered approach, and this one focuses in on empathy and the user or customer experience. So it understands the user's needs or customer's needs and pain points, and then ideates, as the word, or creates from those needs potential solutions, prototyping and testing them iteratively. So let's kind of get another little example here. So the stages of design thinking are emphasize. So we can understand the end user's needs and challenges through maybe research and observation. So we're kind of empathizing here, again, human-centered. So we put ourselves in our customer's shoes and think, okay, from our customer's perspective, how is this being perceived? If we really look at it through the lens of the customer here, there's gaps. Doesn't quite fit. It's not as integrated as we thought when we looked at it from our lens. So going in and empathizing as the customer can often, open up those opportunities for you. Another stage of design thinking is define. So clearly defining the problem or opportunity based on user or customer insights. So from the research, actually saying, okay, are we actually answering the wrong problem? Or actually, is our communication barking up the wrong tree? Are we actually saying the wrong things because actually we're focusing in the wrong area? So whilst what we're saying is technically correct, actually it's not really addressing the heart of the matter. It's not really going for the core of the issue or the challenge. So defining, using words really creatively and really precisely can actually make you feel and think things differently about your products and services. Remember the power of the word. You know how strong this is when you're doing marketing communications. Some titles work, some don't. Some storytelling works and some doesn't. It's the same here in unlocking creative potential. How you define the problem can give you a very, very different solution. The word ideate, it sounds a bit of a strange word. It's not one that we use constantly and consistently, but basically it's about brain dumping or brainstorming multiple solutions, no matter how outlandish. Ideating is just saying, all right, what are all of our options? Let's just get everything out there. And then you look at these options and you think, that's interesting because that one and that one, they're kind of the same, but they're subtly different. So what is that telling us? And then we can start to be curious. We can start to be challenging. We can start to look at stuff in a slightly different way. And from that, we can then go to the P, the prototyping in the stages of design thinking. We can build simple, low-cost prototypes to explore different ideas that have come out of these processes. And then we can go to test. This is really a really helpful one because then we're gathering feedback and iterating from the experiences or the feedback that we get in how people respond to those prototypes. Now, you could say, well, hold on, Neil, isn't this piloting? And it absolutely is. This is the creative design thinking approach to piloting something. And a lot of us have done pilot campaigns where we just test a certain creative or a certain channel, and we do it at a low scale, almost in stealth behind the scenes before we then go for broke when we get the version that works. That's exactly what we're doing here in design thinking. So little and often is far better than just saying, yeah, we think we've got the answer. We're just going to go for it. Far better to say, we've got three options here. We're going to do these at a very low level and we're going to keep them quiet. We're going to work with them, iterate them, kind of get them better and better. And one of these is going to prove itself to us and the customer as being the one. And then, of course, you could integrate that with some of the other collaborative stuff that we talked about, maybe taking it to the market, maybe a defined audience, maybe it's your VIP customers or some of your friendly customers, and test it out with them. This is unlocking creative potential in a very systematic, design-led way. So an actionable tip would be maybe use empathy maps and use personas during this ideation process to ensure that your solutions are tailored to real-world needs and desires. Well, a lot of the upside we're going to see from this kind of thinking opens up the opportunity, but at the same time, often and then there's the danger that it becomes a little bit surreal, or we go a little bit off-piste, or it becomes a little bit out there, and then it's often hard to bring it back. But if you're using your customer personas as a filter or as a check and balance and think, well, okay, our customer Bob, let's just call him Bob, he's one of our customer personas. What would Bob think? What would Bob feel if we did this? How would Bob respond? What does Bob, react to in the way that we do this in this way? And so kind of use the personas creatively as part of this design thinking. And that's a great way of keeping the ideas kind of well grounded in this process as you go forward. Now, for a lot of us, we're going to be using sort of some techniques to kind of bring this to life. So I just want to cover a few techniques that you can use because I'm talking collaboration here. If you've noticed, I kind of started to move this towards working with customers, working with partners, working with your team. So you're going to need, if you're going to drive this stuff as a marketer, you need a few techniques up your sleeve that you can then bring into play when you see a certain scenario evolving in the meeting or in the planning day. So one of the things you can do is brain dumping. The latest version of brain dumping, which is, traditionally born of an unstructured approach of just, purely just getting all the ideas out there on a flip chart or with post-it notes and just having a look at them and thinking, well, okay, we've got loads of ideas. Where next? So brain dumping version 2 is a lot more focused. Now, this will enable you to set clear objectives. So there's the storytelling bit at the start. Decide the story you're trying to solve or the narrative that you want to work with. Set the expectations, set time limits, and use structured frameworks to guide the process. And then you can also integrate things like mind maps or idea banks for actually capturing the thoughts. I mean, for me personally, I go straight to the flip chart and a load of post-it notes. That's where I go when I'm doing brain dumping. But of course, by setting a very clear objective, the key question that you're focusing on brings everybody to the same focal point. So how it works is you create a focus question or challenge for the brain dumping. You can then, if it's a bigger group, split it into smaller groups to explore various angles around that question or challenge, and then bring everyone back for discussion and refinement. And that's always a really, really interesting one because then you'll get, if you do this thing in isolation as maybe little subgroups or breakouts, you might get a very different pathway formed by a particular group. And then that would be something potentially you can explore. So keep the groups small and intimate. So if you've got a dozen people or something like that, even more, then breaking those down into little breakouts and then comparing the results as a wider team is a great way of starting to really share some innovation that will be coming through. You can also use storytelling, another great technique for bringing people together. Emotional storytelling, so marketing stories that evoke emotion resonate more with audiences. I've covered in previous sessions storytelling frameworks like the hero's journey or the 3-act structure. You can research those if you want to find out a little bit more how to tell stories to set up these kind of creative marketing frameworks. But it will help you to structure campaigns, structure meetings, meetings that evoke empathy, connection, and action. It gets people's buy-in. Storytelling can be very, very an interesting way of actually becoming more innovative. So think about when you're crafting your marketing narratives, ensure you take the audience on a journey. So if you're trying to sell this into your organization as something you want to do internally, or if you're involving customers, take them on a journey from problem identification through your existing services and your brand as the solution to some kind of challenge or some kind of satisfying emotional resolution, i.e., well, this is how the world's going to look differently on the other side if we can crack this challenge, or if we could launch this problem, this project or this product to solve this particular solution that we need, or this particular issue, then our world is going to look different like this on the other side. Getting people's buy-in is a really, really important one. I mean, Coca-Cola have used this really, really effectively in their Taste the Feeling campaign, where they use storytelling to evoke nostalgia and happiness, tying those emotions to the brand's product. So how do you want people you're engaging with in this process to feel? It's not just the tangible, practical outputs of your processes here. This is actually how you're getting people emotionally engaged. So it's about feeling as well as thinking. That's really important. Another technique you can use for creative marketing in this kind of area is gamification. I mentioned this earlier in the process here. Gamification over the last 10 years or so has become ever more attractive and ever more effective. We've seen this. I mean, a great example is Starbucks. They've used a gamification app on their loyalty program, awarding points for every purchase, which can be redeemed for free items. But the app at the same time offers special challenges. So, you know, things like buy 5 coffees this week and unlock a bonus. It creates ongoing engagement. It gets people into a slightly more competitive, a slightly more kind of immersive kind of experience. So maybe that's something you'd want to bring into the mix here. Tapping into these intrinsic motivations, such as competition, achievement, status. I always say when I'm talking to my clients is if you've got a persona that's fueled by ego, and not in a bad way, but they just, and again, I wouldn't judge, but it is something that some personas, when you really deeply think about them, they want to look good. They want to be seen as the leader amongst their peers, etc. And if you can use gamification to make them feel rewarded, give them that feeling of status, make them feel a little bit VIP, then that can also count as well. So if you can incorporate gamification elements into your marketing strategy, such as leaderboards, rewards for engagement, interactive challenges, and ensure the reward isn't just relevant to you, but it's relevant and valued by your audience. You can use this internally for getting people on board with this kind of innovation and creativity process, but you can also obviously use this externally as well, getting your customers involved and becoming just the brand that's fun to be with, the brand that's fun to have a relationship with, the one that's worth actually having a long-term kind of, you know, highly valued conversation with. This is about engagement. This is about actually engaging in a way that is meaningful, but actually really kind of useful on both sides. Another one that you can do, the penultimate one I want to share with you, is to really be thinking about overcoming barriers to creativity. Because what I've opened up really here, I guess, is a load of positives. It's a load of kind of things that kind of are quite exciting with a fair wind and, you know, sort of everything behind you and the support of everyone. You know, you're going to get great outcomes. But you don't always find yourself, you know, being fully supported in this, because there will be cynics, there will be, you know, customers who don't believe, or maybe your line manager doesn't believe, or maybe your colleagues aren't up for it, or they perceive themselves as too busy. So how can you actually overcome barriers to being creative? Well, one of the big ones is fear of failure. Oh, well, if we're an organization that's actually quite risk averse, we don't have a culture where failure is kind of seen as a learning opportunity, well, then we're up against it. So if innovation is not part and parcel of actually how you do business, and in some organizations, actually failure is rewarded because it's seen as a positive, because it's only from failure that you actually learn. Because when the sun is shining and everything's going well, what are you actually learning? Very little. Let's think about, when we've learned most as human beings, either in our private life or in our professional life, it's only when things have gone wrong or gone badly, or it's been a bumpy ride and we've come out the other side and we thought, wow, I learned a lot there. That's when we actually learn. So creativity will come with a fear of failure, maybe in you. It might not be the colleagues, it might actually be you, and that actually risk taking isn't a natural thing for you. So it's about taking those little steps. It's about not kind of overdoing it or overselling it, and actually doing it in line with the culture or the kind of acceptability of change, which is what we're really talking about here. So understand how much change is acceptable within you and within your colleagues and within your customers, who also might want to see something that is very predictable, and we don't like things to be a revolution, but we might be happy with an evolution. Then you can set the expectation from the start in an appropriate way. Another barrier to creativity is creative burnout. Let's face it, we all know this one. There will be times when, I just haven't got the energy, or when, I've got to create that content, or I've got to get everybody on board and I'm just not feeling it, or the creative juices are not flowing, or, I've got writer's block, I can't see my way through. Balancing creativity with practical thinking is the way to show everybody that you're not getting overwhelmed by creativity and the creative demands. For a lot of us, it isn't a natural thing to just become super innovative from the get-go. Sometimes we need to work to a process. Sometimes we might need a little bit of help from our friend ChatGPT. It really is down to that kind of level. If you're finding yourself being either burnt out or lost for ideas, you can often then go to the AI or a colleague and say, I just need a few ideas, just get me started. And often taking that first step is a great way of moving forward and breaking down that barrier that, if you didn't do it, would otherwise just stop you in your tracks and you'd never get anywhere. Another thing you can do as well is think of the word diversity. We're never going to come up with new stuff, be it a new product or service, by looking at things in the same way. But we're also not going to come at it looking at it from the perspective of ourselves or people just like us. The more we can actually look at this from diverse perspectives, and I'm talking gender, I'm talking nationality, I'm talking geographic location, I'm talking age, all of these different things and many, many more. If we were to look at this from a Gen Z perspective and we're super old, or if we're Gen Z, look at it from somebody who's really super old, look at it from their perspective, and all the other combinations of diversity that we can think of, we will be bringing in fresh new perspectives. And this will unlock new ideas. For a lot of us, this isn't a natural thing to do, but if you are an empath, or you do have an opportunity to reflect and take a little bit of time to just think, well, how would they think about this? How would they feel about this? Can I actually look at it from their perspective? Can I go on the journey from their angle, or from where they're sitting, or from how they look at this, and see how it looks? But importantly, see how it feels. Bringing in a diverse team to be super creative is going to be way more powerful than just surrounding yourself by people just like you. We know intuitively that that is right, but so few of us do it proactively. There is certainly a sense of kind of familiarity with people who are just like us. And you think about your friends, for example, they're generally going to be quite like you. They're going to have the same interests, the same background. This is something as humans that we do naturally. So this is about breaking the mold. Creativity comes from breaking the mold. And of course, what we're trying to do here is embrace experimentation. We're not going to be able to do this by looking at things the same way, by acting the same way, by thinking the same way. Ultimately, this is about doing, being, and feeling differently. So really what we're looking to do here is be able to build a creative marketing team that is truly diverse, combining creatives, data analysts, strategists, and maybe even tech experts to create a well-rounded marketing team, looking at things from a different perspective. So if you are tasked with, come up with some new ideas for, don't just think of it from your perspective. Talk to people, collaborate, ask your customers, see what colleagues think. Ask ChatGPT, get into conversation with your AI little assistants and find out what the options are. and encourage collaboration. Use these cross-functional team meetings and workshops, these conversations to generate new ideas. And create as part of this really what you might term a safe space. Because opening a safe space up and really holding that space for people with no judgment, free thinking, no kind of preconceived ideas, no kind of, oh, well, I'm going to evaluate that as I go, but just allowing people to express themselves, allowing yourself to express yourself and become almost vulnerable, if you like, with the crazy ideas that come out, those, wacky things that, well, I've been thinking about this for a while, but I thought it was probably stepping a bit too far. Well, this is when you're allowed to do it, giving yourself and your colleagues and your team and your customers permission to fail, permission to give those crazy ideas that, well, I probably shouldn't say this, but those little moments, allow those things to come through. So it's your responsibility, if you're setting these kind of programs or meetings up, to create a safe space. That is the term that you need to be thinking. That's the mantra here. And making sure everybody understands that it is a safe space. Honor that space. Don't judge. That's the tricky bit. Don't judge any answers or responses that you get. And then that's where the magic and the beauty of this thing will manifest from. And when you get those amazing ideas that come through and you start to filter those things down, the final bit that you really need to do is to measure the impact of your innovation. We're not talking here, as I've said all the way through this, we're not necessarily, you might, but we're not necessarily talking here about a revolution. We're looking at evolution, moving things steadily, step by step. And of course, that means that you can measure it. That means that you can put key performance indicators in. You know I'm going to say this because true marketing, good marketing is measurable marketing. So what are your metrics? What are the things that are important to you that you're going to measure in terms of the impact of this innovation? Are you going to see whether it has improved engagement rates, conversion rates, customer satisfaction, or marketing return on investment, ROI? Are you actually actively going to measure, test, and learn? Are you going to put into place A/B testing to determine which of your creative or innovative solutions work best? Are you actually going to do this? It's great to be creative and come up with the ideas and say, yep, we're going to do that. But if you don't measure the impact, you've only gone a certain percentage down the way of adding value to your organization. Are you also going to put in agility? Are you going to constantly evolve based on data insights, the things that you're looking and learning from these metrics and these KPIs? And are you going to be prepared to iterate quickly if things don't work as you think? Because if you can set up a system and a process that says, well, because we're piloting it, because we're doing this on a small scale, it means we can be really fleet of foot. We can be really proactive and just tweak that thing, tune that thing, just change that a little bit and then see what happens. If you can be prepared to iterate and reiterate quickly, you're on the road to success with the impact of your innovation. And so the top tip here really is to track performance end to end through data-driven approaches, whilst at the same time leaving room for creative experimentation. It isn't about then just bringing things back to earth and saying, right, well, we can't now still be creative. Of course you can. But by logging, journaling, reflecting, and evaluating all the way through this, i.e., keeping records of how it goes, that's really what I'm saying by using all that fancy speak. As long as you're monitoring this as you go, diarising what happened, then you've got the evidence to sell back into the organization that this stuff is powerful. This stuff makes a difference. This stuff really, really counts. And so we become more creative, we become more innovative, but we can also then improve it. So here we go. 3 next steps for you to become more innovative and creative in your organization. Step 1, start by challenging one established norm in your current marketing strategy and then brainstorm alternative approaches to it. It's going to get very personal to you, but that's good because then you can own it. Step 2, incorporate some customer-driven insights into your campaigns by actively encouraging them in co-creation or feedback loops. Listen to the research and then act on it. Really incorporate those data-driven or customer-driven insights. Really, truly act on it. A lot of us marketers say we do, but we don't. should we just get on and do the same thing again? So actively do this, then you'll be winning. And step 3, experiment with one new marketing tool or technique, such as gamification or AI-driven personalisation, to test its impact on engagement. The trick here I would recommend is one new technique or tool. Just do the one. Once you've proven a process, once you've used some of these systems and these techniques to actually, introduce change to your organization or to your team, you've then got a process that you can scale up. You can do loads more of it, but getting it right with one process, test its impact, make a difference with one thing, then you've got your process and your system. Try and do it with loads, you're going to struggle, but do it with one, then you'll really understand and be able to go deep into the impact that it's making. And that, for me, is where the real value comes from. And so from that, you'll have a load more fun to do things with.